Welcome to the Asset Mindset Podcast, where we don't wait for opportunities, we create them. I'm your host, Daniel Fielding, former Green Beret, author of The Asset Mindset, a motivational speaker, and a life coach. But enough about me. Let's go and meet today's very special guest, Sally Roberts, who has an amazing organization, Wrestle Like a Girl. Sally, why don't you say hello and introduce yourself to the audience?
Hello, my name is Sally Roberts. I'm a two-time world bronze medalist in women's wrestling, a combat veteran from Special Operations, and I'm the founder and CEO of Wrestle Like a Girl. We are the national and international advocacy organization for girls and women in the sport of wrestling. Our vision is that we want to see girls and women wrestling worldwide.
I love it. That's fantastic. Thank you for being here. It's an honor to have you. And I just want to let you know in each episode, we dive deep into the mindset, habits, and mission-driven thinking that turn everyday people, girls, boys, whoever, into high performers and real-life warriors. This podcast isn't about just motivation. It's about transformation. So please take us back to a transformational moment in your life where you had to be like, wow, this old version of me needs to go and I need to transform into something else.
When I was in 8th grade, I didn't like being at home after school. I would go out and shoplift, break into houses. I got arrested so many times that I got put in front of a juvenile detention officer who told me that if I didn't find an after-school activity, I was going to face going to juvenile detention. And I was running the mean streets of Federal Way, Washington, and I couldn't have told you anything about the ways that you live or integrity or living your values. I was an 8th grade girl that was completely lost, finding joy in beating people up. And so I thought, well, what do my friends do? After school, they play sports. So I tried out for all the girls' sports, softball, basketball, volleyball, and I got told that I was unathletic and I got cut from those programs. In fact, I was plenty athletic. It's that I didn't know how to play well with others. And so I had to sit there and say, well, what do I do? I saw that the list of after school offerings, there was wrestling, and wrestling was a no-cut sport. And I thought, aha, that's it. As long as I go out and wrestle and I don't quit, I can't go to juvenile detention. And that singular decision forever changed the trajectory of my life. It gave me a place of community, a place of belonging. I was so wild and feral that I had so much energy, and my coaches were so grateful to have me on the team. And that was one of the best decisions I ever made. It was the first one that really I was the driver of my own life in a non-conventional way. And it really got the fires burning for unconventional warfare and the ways that you operate beyond the lines, beyond the limits.
Wow, that's an incredible story. I didn't know you had that hooligan background a little bit in there on you, but hey, live and learn, right? Nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes. So can you talk about how that really changed? Because obviously in the beginning, you did wrestling because you had to. You wanted to avoid, a punishment or getting in trouble. So when you did that change, was it worth it? And how did it change you?
The change affected every aspect of my life. I found something that I was able to fall in love with. The next thing you know, I could eat, sleep, and breathe wrestling. I recently just found out that I'm getting inducted into the Washington State Wrestling High School Hall of Fame. And I wrestled before they had digital records of the win-loss records for athletes. And if you were a female back in the day, you just sort of got lumped with the men. So I got a phone call and they said, hey, we don't have any records for you. Can you let us know what your win-loss record was for high school? I said, too easy, I can tell you right now. I said, I won one match. I said, you won one match? No, no, no. You don't feel bad about that. Like, not everyone wins. I said, are you kidding me? I'm getting inducted into Hall of Fame and I won one match. Like, that is a testament to perseverance, and you keep going, and things don't end up your way. But when you fall in love with the process, that can be a beautiful thing. And my career has been illustrious, certainly. And the definer for me was that I fell in love with the joy of suffering. And I realized that if I could sit in that space of suffering for long enough, I could figure out what it meant inside of me, and I could alchemize it and really convert it to some powerful motivation. And it's been a catalyst in my life. I've had to understand how to flip the switch so that I didn't stay in suffering too long and get sort of sucked in by the darkness and use it as a motivator. But I've also understood that that's a gift. And if we don't allow our women the opportunity to understand suffering in their own language and alchemize that and turn that into something that they can harness and drive forward and create communities and families, we're missing a boat. And so to be able to really live your life values. That was one of the most important things that I got out of it. Character, courage, and integrity.
Nice. Now, I heard you use a buzzword that's in the military too, and a lot of sports or whatnot. Flip the switch. Can you dive more into that for listeners maybe that aren't familiar with flipping the switch?
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, when we go about our days, it's really important for us to remember that our head need to be where our feet are at. So as I'm sitting here and I'm in this discussion with you, I'm completely and totally present. And once this finishes, I'm going to go to the next thing that I have, my next obligation, and I'm going to be totally and completely present there. And for me to be able to harness the abilities that I have, whether it's my mindset, my tenacity, my intensity, I have to be able to tell myself when I flip that switch. One of the challenges that I had post athletics was that it was always on and I was always ready to go. And that's a really exhaustive state to be in. And so it is important to know, just like an athlete would have a periodization calendar for their life. I, as a CEO, I have a periodization calendar. I know when I need to perform. I know when I need to recover. When it's time for me to recover, I genuinely own that because when it's time for me to flip the switch and go all in, I have to have the gas tank and the energy so that I can move whatever idea I have forward, even if it's only something that's intrinsic within me.
Oh, that's good. That's very powerful. And you got into planning. Can you talk more about planning and how having a plan can really make a big difference?
That is something that I have had the gift of learning in real time from being an athlete. I would wrestle. I competed competitively at 59 kilos, 130 pounds, but I would walk around as a 150-pound just animal, like eating chicken and protein and lifting weights all the time and really trying to see how much muscle mass I can gain. And once I got to this state of uh, true strength, and for me, that was about 150 pounds, I had to come up with the plan of how the heck do I make weight? And I had to sit with a lot of professionals, whether it was a nutritionist, sports psychologist, people, coaches, and I had to start understanding that if I need to be on date by this weight, that if I have to be on weight by this day, I have to do backwards planning. And that backwards planning was something that allowed me to know that if I follow this plan, I will succeed. And I took that template of the simple act of having to manage and maintain a weight class, and I've parlayed that over to every aspect of my life. So if there's a project or something that needs to get done, I backwards plan into it. And I also backwards plan into opportunities where I get to live my values. It's important for me to be a leader that has character and courage, and I am fanatical about walking around with integrity. And I ask myself, did I plan? Did I execute that? Did I hold myself accountable? And I think it's important that people know that as athletes, like athletes are beacons of hope because we come from the trenches and we have this idea that we can be something. And we don't even know if that's even possible yet, but we're going to work towards the idea of it. And once you start to put plans in place beyond just the aspiration, you can start to put a foundation underneath you where you can really make that happen and it can come alive and it's a confidence builder, it's self-efficacy, and it's all of those things that when we walk around, we can look at ourselves in the mirror and say, I believed it, I planned it, I made it happen, I am awesome.
Yes, that is manifestation and transformation right there. So, get into this backwards planning. For those that don't know, describe what you would do for a backwards plan or what is backwards planning.
Sure. So I'm going to again speak it to the language of wrestling and making weight. But if I had to be um, 159 kilos for world team trials or for the world championships. I knew that on that date I had to make weight. And if at max I can lose half a pound a day, then I had to start taking a half a pound down every day and I would work backwards from that. And once I understood the weight class that I needed to be at and how I was going to get my weight down, then I would start building in all of the other elements to make sure that with the reduction of calories and as that process went on, I would maintain my strength. So for me, it was really important that once I created a system that worked, I never threw it out. If I went through and I created the system so I could make weight, and maybe I won that tournament or I didn't, I would come back and say what went right with this train up or what didn't go right, and I would use that model. And once I had the basic model in place, there was no big changes that I needed to make. They were usually small tweaks here and there to make sure that I could keep the momentum going because the art of wrestling is not making weight. It's just an element of it. You actually have to be the best wrestler when you're on the mat. And so the backwards planning means that by the time that competition arrives, you will have figured out all of those things that have to get taken into consideration. So when it's time to execute, you can do it.
I love it. And let's talk now about discipline, the discipline to cut weight and to have that plan that's however long to be able to do that and get to that goal. How important is the discipline?
The discipline, you get to choose how important you want it to be. For me, when I fall in love with things, it's really hard for me to fall in love with things. I become maniacal. And so I'm really conscientious with what I fall in love with because I know the way that my brain works. I've fallen in love with wrestling. I've fallen in love with the military. I've fallen in love with business. And that brings forward a mindset and a drive for me that most people can't necessarily comprehend. But if you think back to a girl that chose wrestling instead of juvenile detention, made it all the way to become a two-time world bronze medalist, is now getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. That is a level of confidence and self-belief that most people are still recognizing to be as intense as it is. And in order to make all of that happen, you have to have discipline. But I akin it to that incredible life journey, that was over the span of 30 years. I fell in love with something for 30 years and I stayed with it every day in some form or fashion, and now it's reaping its rewards. And now I look at the sport of wrestling, and I can say with absolute certainty, wrestling has done more for me than I have ever done for it. Discipline has done more for me than I've ever done for discipline. Integrity has done more for me than I've ever done for integrity. And it is one of those things, it's a character attribute that I hope that everyone embraces and they continue to see how much discipline can they have, can they hold as they work through the challenges in their life. We all get stung by the whip of difficulty, and no one ever gets to say, how you're going to behave in that space. You just sort of have to live in it. And when you come out the other side, you can say, I can do this and this and this differently. And the ones that truly want to win in life and the ones that truly want to succeed, they honor and they celebrate their wins, but they really take their losses not as personal, but as learning factors so that they can never make those same mistakes again. And that's discipline.
Yeah, that's the truth. And I like what you're kind of putting out here behind the scenes that I hope people are picking up on is your love and passion or passion and purpose. When you have passion and purpose, how much easier does it make to be disciplined?
Yeah, I think that you're spot on. And when we look at youth sports, and there's three things that I care about: veteran causes, alternative healing, and athletics, women's empowerment through athletics. So when I think of those three things that I care about, for me to say yes, it's because I have a passion about it. I can really bring all of my skill sets to bear and help drive whatever that project is that I'm working on forward. And I used to not know what it is that I liked. So one year, uh, I gave myself permission to become the Dos Equis woman. I wanted to become the most interesting woman in the world. And what did that mean for me? Because I didn't know anything beyond wrestling, the military, and running a business. That means I had to allow myself to be vulnerable and to be seen by others. And that meant that I had to say yes to opportunities. So I would get asked, do you want to go and whale watch? Do you want to go and surf? Do you want to go and play pickleball? Old Sally would have said, no, all I care about are these three things. And those three things, those things you described sound like a distraction. When when it's actually beautiful to be able to let your mind relax from the thing that you're so passionate about and rest, heal, and recover so that when you come back to it, you can bring that renewed passion forward and help keep that flame alive that you've been cultivating through your lifespan.
No, I like that. And I like that you're talking about getting out of your comfort zone. Like you say no, 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 or whatnot. And saying yes to an opportunity can change your life. I mean, you said yes to wrestling and look what happened. And you said no and just blown that off. How different would your life be? It would be completely different, correct?
I sit and think about where could my life possibly have gone had I not wrestled, and the answer is I can't fathom it. I truly can't fathom it. And there are some people where wrestling finds them, and there's others where they find wrestling. And it's just like the military. With the military, some people find the military, and others the military finds them. And it's up to them to decide how do they want to step into this new opportunity, knowing that they can recreate and reinvent themselves in any ways that they choose?
Yeah. So I get a question. You've been talking about the military. You've been talking about wrestling. What did wrestling teach you about yourself that the military later reinforced or challenged in you?
Bravery. Wrestling, it is one person against one person. You're on the wrestling mat and you're standing in a singlet on an elevated mat underneath the lights. And all you can do is show up because you've done the work and you practice and you trained. And in the military, there have been so many times where I had to step into courage and I've had to step into bravery. And a visualization technique that I have used before going on missions was closing my eyes and imagining myself wearing a singlet, standing on top of a podium, getting ready to wrestle. And I was able to harness that courage and step into some really tumultuous situations that I was able to handle gracefully because I already had my mind going the right direction. I was already engaged, and all I had to do was execute what I already knew, which was that you keep your feet moving through discomfort, through uncertainty, and you keep speaking belief into yourself and your peer group. And if you continue that path forward, you might have a chance for success.
Nice. Well said. Well said. So you've mentioned bravery and courage now. Well, to be brave or to be courageous, you have to face fear. So can you share with us and the listeners about facing fear and how to overcome it? Because some people, fear freezes them.
Yes. The most frightening and fearful thing that I had happen to me was when I was 5 years old. I was playing out front of an apartment complex. I got abducted, raped, and when I got taken to the hospital, the detectives told my mother she wasn't going to need therapy. I wasn't going to need therapy. Um, and that I wasn't going to remember this incident. So it was best for me just to move forward and I need to fight my way out. And that instilled a fear in me of women. I had a tremendous time being vulnerable to women because I wasn't sure if they were going to hurt me when I was the most vulnerable. So when it talks about me stepping in to fear and courage and understanding what that's like, for me, the most fearful thing I had to do was acknowledge why did I feel the way that I felt towards women? Why was I on an all male wrestling team until I made Team USA? Now I'm surrounded by women. Those women were awesome because they all fought and they had a very similar background to me. But then I went into the business world and I had to start interfacing with women that made me very uncomfortable because they didn't know how to get along with other women. And it was a lot of personality differences that I just couldn't comprehend because I didn't get raised alongside women in the same way. And so, to be quite truthful and with full vulnerability, my fear has been with women that they're going to hurt other women. And that's been a huge driver for me in my life with building Wrestle Like a Girl, because I want women to know that they can own their space, their voice, and their body. And in my facing of that fear is that I have gone and started going to therapy with my mother, and I have forgiven a lot of people for that incident so that it was no longer something that was shackled and chained around my ankles. It was an experience that I had. I was able to overcome it, and I have been able to overcome it with grace and love. And I'm helping other people who have been through similar circumstances recognize that they're not broken, they're not tainted, they are powerful, badass humans with the ability to endure. And we can alchemize whatever that trauma is into something really beautiful if you can believe that that is within your purview.
Well, that's powerful stuff. I'm sorry you had to go through that. I know a lot of women that have, including my wife, and I talk about in my book some of the stuff she went through. And it's horrible. People can do horrible things to other human beings, and it's sad that we become victims. But the big thing I try and teach with the asset mindset philosophy is nobody can keep you a victim. Yes, you were a victim. A bad incident happened in your past, but like you've done, you've alchemized this, you've changed it, you've transformed. Can you talk about going through the transformation and victim mentality and how to get over it?
I have done a lot in my lifetime to say, how can I make me, Sally, stronger? I don't ever think it's someone else's fault if I'm having a bad day. The onus is on me who's having the bad day to understand why that bad day is happening and how do I reconcile that. And I have been through a handful of different leadership courses, self help, professional help. And at a certain point, I felt like my brain started to melt and I couldn't understand what the heck was happening. I went to the VA. I started to do scans on my head. We thought maybe there was a tumor. There was a slew of things that we were doing, and I couldn't figure it out. And through the grace of God, I got an opportunity to go and sit with the plant medicine ibogaine, and I went down to Tijuana. I sat with that medicine for 12 hours, and that was where I had my most profound mindset shift. I went into that medicine and I felt like I was a 90-year-old woman asking God for a do-over in life. Here I was, 45, not married. I don't have kids. My dogs have died. I don't have a cat, and I just really felt like I had fucked up. I had fucked up tremendously. And I sat with that plant medicine for 12 hours. It was a divine experience, and there was a lot of things that had to get reconciled that I needed help with because I couldn't figure it out myself. And when I sat up from that medicine 12 hours later, I clasped my hands together and said, "Thank you so much. I'm a 45-year-old woman who is an American. I am sovereign. I am liberated. I have financial freedom, and I can be whatever I want to be in life." And when I came back from Mexico, from being overseas abroad to take the plant medicine that's not legal here in the United States, I felt like I had the opportunity to live my life as I chose, and that was the profound shift for me.
Wow, that is incredible. And what a story that Ibogaine is. I know so many people that it's helped. Can you kind of, if you're comfortable, walk us through like that experience? I know you said the end result, you came out of there empowered, grateful, but what was it like for someone that's maybe considering, going down that road and trying to do alternative medicine to heal themselves?
My ibogaine experience was truly profound. I had been doing so much work to try and help pivot my brain a different direction, and nothing was lasting. I kept coming back to these same thought patterns and rumination. So for me, was it was like I had 12 hours to have a one-on-one conversation with God, where when my voice didn't work because I couldn't understand what was happening, I could sense that in my mind, I was pointing to the places where I felt pain, whether it was my heart or my head, and the plant medicine would go to where I was pointing and say, "What have we got here?" And it would start doing some repairs. And while all of that was happening, I was having a beautiful conversation with God, and I told him 2 things. I said, "1, I don't know who I am." And he helped me understand who I was. And then 2, I said, "Well, if I am me, then who's been driving this ship of a human for the last 45 years?" And this realization hit me that I had been without a lighthouse. In many ways, I didn't feel that I was raised with motherly love, fatherly love, faith, or religion. I've been stumbling around for 40 years trying to do the best I could as a human without knowing which way was north. And and so when I was having this conversation with God about why I've been so confused, I just told him that I need help finding Sally. I don't know where she's at. And the plant medicine took me to the place where I had been abducted and raped. And through God's incredible love, He was able to wrap His arms around me, and I could go to that place. And I found my spirit, and I reconnected with her, and we walked out of that space together. And for anyone that has experienced extreme childhood abuse, that feeling of of soul reconciliation for me, I felt like I was going and doing hostage rescue, to be honest, and to come out intact, whole, healthy, and in love with who I am. That was for me the profound thing. And for someone that came from a background where love was this abstract thing that really caused a lot of fear because it was tied to so many other emotions, it allowed me to piece out all those emotions one at a time so I can say, this is what love feels like. This is what gratitude feels like, instead of just having it be a ball of fury that was coursing through me like a lightning storm.
Wow. Yeah, I hear that all the time. It's such a spiritual experience. Like it opens you up and activates your brain in such different ways and really connects mind, body, and soul.
Yeah.
Um, we hear scientifically all the time, we only use 10% of our brain or 20%. And like when you can take something and it starts firing everything, it's pretty incredible. And we still have so much to learn about the mind body connection. I know there's a lot of old stuff and scripture talks about it, whether it be fasting or doing other things that you can reach more spiritual enlightenment or connect with God. And I think that is such a powerful tool. And I wish that we had more freedom here to do it. I still don't understand, like we say, hey, home of the free. And it's not always that way, but that's a whole nother topic, and we're not here to discuss politics on the asset mindset. But we are here to hopefully expand your mind and help you get a better mindset. And I would like, if you could, to go in the pause button and hit pause, follow, like, and subscribe. Definitely check out what Sally's doing. There'll be links in the description. Learn all about Wrestle Like a Girl. And please give us a like. It doesn't hurt, costs you nothing to subscribe, costs you nothing, and we're doing positive things, and you'll help the algorithm, and you'll help us get more positive word out there into the world. And again, Sally, thank you for being here. So I want to know what made you go into the military then. So we heard the story on why you went into wrestling. How'd you get involved with the military?
In 2008, that was the Olympic year. Olympics were going to be in Beijing, China. And that was when I had to cut down from 63 kilos, 130 pounds, to 55 kilos, 121. So I had a tremendous weight cut. And when I got to the Olympic trials, I made it all the way to the finals and I lost in the best two out of three. And in the sport of wrestling, only the number one person goes to the Olympics representing Team USA. And I came back from Olympic trials. I had no idea that I thought I was going to win. So the fact that I didn't completely blindsided me. And I came home, I sat on my bed, started to sink into the cushions, and the depression wrapped its arms around me. And I had enough wherewithal to recognize that if I didn't change my physical space, my mental space would never change. So I just thought, well, what the heck do you do? And I decided that I was going to go to the nearest military recruiter, and it was the Army. I said to the recruiter, I want the toughest job a woman can have right off the street. And they said, you're in luck. We have two jobs for you. I was like, okay, great. Which one would get me deployed the fastest? And they said this one, psychological operations. And I said, okay. And I remember the recruiter saying, there's a selection for this. Do you think you can pass? And I was like, I don't know. I just really felt like I was a loser. And so that was my trajectory, was that I had to figure out how I was going to do something different with my life so that I could move forward in a way that had power and I could start to regain my sense of self. And there was an opportunity for me to volunteer for a deployment for Afghanistan, and I gratefully did. And I remember talking to someone and they said, why did you do that? And I said, because I can still feel that I'm stuck and I want to keep moving and I want to keep using myself for purpose. And the one thing that I've always been able to believe in is the United States of America and the American flag. And if I can put my love behind my country, then I'm going to feel like I can keep moving forward.
Yeah, and it's such an honor to do because, I mean, everybody I ever served with that I've come across, especially when you get into special operations, they volunteered on so many levels, more than once. They didn't just join the military, then they volunteered for airborne school, and then they volunteered to go to selection or do whatever to get into certain units. And that mindset of being a part of something greater than yourself is, I think, a spiritual thing that we all have. Some of us are more in tune with it, And I think we need to help people become more in tune with it because the more you are having a purpose and you're finding a greater cause, I mean, that changes the game because it's not about you anymore. And you're living with a purpose and it's fulfilling. And there's so many good things that come out of it. And let's talk about joining a team, whether it be wrestling or joining PsyOps or going into the military. Let's talk about teammates or surrounding yourself with good people. How has that been a asset for you? And please share.
The people that you surround yourself is one of the most important decisions that you can make. The single most important decision that anyone can make is who do you pick as your spouse? And that's going to make a lot of difference in how you operate and navigate through the world. And beyond that, you're going to have your close knit tribe of people, and they're going to have such an influence on you, whether you recognize it or not, that you have to have discernment in how you are navigating those relationships. What are they bringing to the table and what are you bringing to the table? And from what I found, I know that I was successful from many of my ventures and side quests because it was all about the team. And perhaps they weren't the most accomplished, they weren't the fastest, they weren't the swiftest, but man, did they have passion? Did they have character, courage, and integrity? And were they willing to suffer? Like for me, those are some of the basic building blocks. And then as you continue to understand those relationships and how they ebb and flow in your own life, we have to remember that we are inherently sovereign individuals. I speak for myself. I don't speak for other people. Other people, my friends speak for themselves. They don't speak for other people. And understanding, especially as a woman, what does it mean to to be sovereign? What does it mean to have agency? Yes, the people in your life affect you, and you absolutely have to know how they do affect you. But you also have to recognize that you are the general of your own life. You are the captain of your own life, and for far too many people, they let other people dictate how they're going to move, flow, and navigate. And it's time that we all take our power back and say, I'm going to work on this for myself. I want to be the best person I can be for my community.
Well, that's fantastic. Now, what advice would you give? You're talking about being the best person you could be. What if somebody was on autopilot or droning, like we say in the military, and they're just, going through life 9 to 5 or the 8 hour day, coming home and not doing anything? How would you help them get out of that?
One of my favorite movies is Legally Blonde. Classic Americana, classic Americana. And there's this one scene where Elle is the lawyer and she's defending her sorority sister. And she said, there's no way that my sorority sister killed anybody. She just came from the gym. When you lift weights, you create endorphins. Endorphins make people happy, and happy people just don't kill other people. So I think the first step in getting out of a rut is starting to move your body. Because once you start to move your body, your energy can start to move, your brain can start to move, and you can start to release old thoughts and old patterns. And that is just the beginning. But the most important thing is not just to move your body, it's that you need a community. And it's going to be those people that you're surrounding yourself with that are going to either help you rise to the occasion and shed that snake like a skin, or they're going to let you be complacent, lay in bed, and have the woe is me story. There's been so many times, and I'm guilty of this myself, where even though I cared about that person deeply, I was nervous to say, of course you can stay in bed for another month. You're just exhausted. It took a lot of courage for me and the potential facing of abandonment and rejection, things that I work on, to say, if you don't get up, there's going to be consequences, and I want you to hear this with love. And so it is understanding that fine line of who is that person? How do you motivate them? Exercise is great, walking is great, but getting a community of people that have your back and you know they have your back, that can be the game changer.
Yes, it absolutely can. And what else can be a game changer? Mentors. Have you had a mentor? Because I know you mentor a lot of girls right now in wrestling and wrestle like a girl. But what about you and your mentors?
I do. I have mentors, and I have a business coach that's also a mentor. And this is a beautiful story. I had someone that I've known for over 25 years now, a very successful business person, and he came and put his hands on my shoulders and looked at me with like pleading eyes and said, Sally, may I mentor you? I said, yeah, sure. Like I'm open to it. He said, okay. We did our first mentorship session. He said, my first question, what are all these dead bodies lying around you? I said, well, They were wrong. They were wrong. They disagreed with me in public. They were wrong. And he said, it's actually you that's wrong. I said, me? I'm wrong? He said, yes. Your job is to be getting alignment. And I said, whoa, the only time anyone's ever talked to me about alignment is either my back or my car. I don't know about alignment. I'm a combat athlete. I'm a combat individual in every realm. And that was the first steps of getting a mentor. He said, "I wanna keep working with you, but I will only work with you if you go to therapy." And I said, "I don't need therapy. I don't even feel emotions." He said, "Oh my gosh, you have to go to therapy." He said, "Otherwise, you're gonna turn into every other CEO that I work with that has this extreme narcissism. You only go off the numbers, and you're not recognizing that those numbers are people, and if we wanna make change, we have to get those people in alignment with us." So for me, having a mentor was profound because you know what you don't know what you don't know, and you don't or you know what you don't know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. And that world was so big for me because I only cared about three things. And it turns out there was a lot more to life than just those three things.
So how long have you been under this mentorship now?
10 years.
10 years. And how has your alignment been going?
It has been a tectonic shift. It has been really beautiful. The things that I've had to work on to be a business leader are the same things that I want to work on and that I am working on so I can be a leader in my personal life, my business life. I want to be the same person in every room. I don't want to have to wear masks and do code switching so that I can make things work. I want to be my authentic self. I want to build a great community and I want to succeed and I want my tribe to succeed around me. Um, I think that it has been one of the most profound decisions. And in fact, when I talk to other business leaders, especially those that are asking for investment or investors, one of my first questions is, who's your business coach? And that tells me a lot about how serious they are towards succeeding.
Hmm. That's a great, great thing right there. I might have to start using that. Like, who's your coach? Who are you working? Because a smart person knows they don't know everything. And we need to find people that are further along the journey or have a skill set that we're trying to acquire and learn from them. A teacher, a coach, a mentor. Absolutely crucial if you're serious about changing your life. And please, if you're
Yes.
serious about doing positive things in the world, don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe. Check out Sally, what she's doing, Wrestle Like a Girl. It's all in the description. And I also want to talk about girls now, and we're on mentorship. If you were talking to a parent that has little girls and doesn't know about wrestling or, oh, that's, maybe dangerous or they could get hurt, can you please share benefits or what you would say to those parents that are maybe on the fence or curious about letting their daughters get into wrestling or any martial arts?
Wrestling is one of the most profound sports that you can let any child, especially a girl, participate in. It teaches character, courage, integrity. It helps to build their self confidence, self efficacy, resilience. They understand there's a research article from the Tucker Center, the Institute on Girls and Women in Sport, and there was research done that shows that when kids, boys and girls, play together at young ages, they know how to get along in all aspects of life as they are older. And so there's so much data that shows that by allowing girls to not just participate in sport, but also participate in wrestling, it really allows them to show up for themselves in a profound way. They don't have anyone to blame if they lose. They get to make the choice if they're going to come back and re-engage in the sport, but use different tactics. They're going to learn what does sportsmanship mean to them? That's something we all have to learn. How do we handle ourselves after we win? But just as importantly, how do we handle ourselves after we lose? And the sport of wrestling it's growing. It's one of the fastest growing sports now in the United States. There are 47 states that recognize girls high school wrestling as an official sport, so girls can wrestle each other for a state championship. And the NCAA now recognizes women's wrestling as an NCAA championship sport, which means we've created a pipeline of financial, social, and educational mobility that really builds the foundation for the empowerment of women. And these same women that are going to be going to practices and potentially getting black eyes and it's rough and tumble, those are going to be the same women that become the leaders of our communities, leaders of families, leaders of this great nation, and actually leaders across the world. We now have girls that are from different countries coming to the United States and wrestling on NCAA college teams, well, they'll be able to go back home and affect change where they live while still being able to potentially make world and Olympic teams representing those countries. So the change that is happening from introducing the sport of wrestling to girls and to women, it's profound and it's going to have a global effect.
That's amazing. And I love to hear this. I love positivity. I love when I see things that are growing and expanding people's lives and the world and positivity. And that's why you're here with the Asset Mindset podcast. So, talk to us more about Wrestle Like a Girl. What are you doing with it? Where is your vision with it?
Our goal is to see every girl wrestling. So we are working right now. We have 2 more states that we're working with to become sanctioned to recognize girls high school wrestling as a championship sport. And we are working to really educate across the United States and a couple of key countries. So so that parents can understand, A, what is my daughter doing? The girls can understand, why does this matter? And what are the elements that I need to care about when it comes to nutrition, hydration, menstruation, some of these things that women have to understand within their body. And we need to understand that should we want to go into the military or some other ventures, the trades. How do we operate under stress? How do we operate under pressure? So, Wrestle Like a Girl, we're continuing to open up doors of opportunities. We change laws, we change policies in order to give those girls opportunities to succeed. Right now, it's on our purview that over 90% of the NCAA schools are not compliant with Title IX, meaning they should be adding a women's program, but they're not because there's no enforcement mechanism within the national landscape to hold any institutions accountable for Title IX beyond lawsuits. That's not our preferred method forward, but it is important for us to see that our girls and women get fair, just, and equitable opportunities. And we look to see where can we provide support so that we can continue to enhance the lives of our future leaders.
So you do a lot of advocation work and trying to expand the programs for girls in different areas. That's what
We
I'm
do.
understanding.
We do. And I'm also a U.S. State Department sports diplomat. So I came during the first Trump administration. I got retained through Biden, and now I'm staying on with Trump. And I've been traveling to different countries, teaching the sport of wrestling to girls and making sure that we continue to open up those doors because the sport is great. 94% of female C-suite executives have said that they've played a sport. We know the
Mm.
benefits of what sport provides to our girls and our women. And if it can happen inside the United States, it can happen outside of the United States. There's just different mechanisms and levers that we need to pull to make it come to fruition. But we do advocacy, education, camps, clinics, and programs and research.
Talk to us about the camps. So if somebody wanted to get involved or go to a camp, how would that happen?
Excuse me. Our next clinic that we're doing, we're working with the UFC to do the clinic at the White House lawn, June 14th. And so our camps and clinics happen organically, but usually someone reaches out and says, we would like to do this. Can you walk alongside us? So we are a very strong collaborative partner organization that wants to see rising tides lift all boats. And it's really when nation states, countries, State Department, or different organizations reach out and say, we would like to do a clinic and can we collaborate with you? So it's not something that Wrestle Like a Girl drives per se, although sometimes we do, if there is a need.
Okay, so this clinic that's coming up, what is the clinic like? If you wanted to participate, you go watch or explain it, please.
Well, as you know, I'm working with the Trump administration, and what you've asked is far too lofty for me to be able to explain so laid out.
Okay.
If you give me two weeks before the event, we might have it buttoned up.
Okay, now I'm tracking. I was curious about a clinic like, hey, can people go there? Do you try out? Do you talk? I don't know. But if it hasn't been planned fully, then you can't really explain it. So thank you. But I do appreciate all the work you're doing, and I think it's incredible. Um, you are changing your own life, but changing so many others. And this is the butterfly effect, as they say. And I just it's incredible to see the difference one person can make, isn't it? Like, would you ever imagine you'd touch so many lives?
I I would have never forecasted in a million years that I would be at the station I'm at in my life, with the abilities that I've had, with the incredible I don't ever think I lose, I think I learn a lot. I've had a lot of life lessons and I keep failing forward, and I think for me the ultimate pursuit has been the gift of the effort, and it's not what you're trying to accomplish, but who you're trying to accomplish it with, and I'm really grateful that I've had a tremendous tribe around me that continue to see my gifts, pull it out of me, and I'm able to then continue to sprinkle fairy dust on them because we're all trying to do the same thing, which is live our best life in the most meaningful way possible.
Yes, absolutely. So tell us more about this fail forward, because a lot of people fail and get hurt, and then they're like, oh, I guess it wasn't for me, and they give up.
Positive growth mindset. We get to be the determiners of how actions or inactions affect our life. So when I decide that I want to do something and I have to take a courageous leap, there is a chance that I might not succeed on the other side. In fact, many times I found that to be the case. And I've had to trust that if I'm going to take a courageous leap, what I also have to trust is that if it doesn't work out, I can take that leap and convert it into a dive roll and keep rolling forward until I figure out the momentum and I can stand up. And
Nice.
and I can say I have certainly failed far more times than I have succeeded, but I can look back and say that wasn't a failure. Things just didn't go as planned. And look, I did 3 dive rolls after that and then I stood up. So carry on.
Absolutely. And that's part of life. Nobody always goes up to bat and hits a home run. You're going to strike out, but that doesn't mean don't go up to bat and don't take another swing. You got to keep going. So,
And as our
absolutely.
veterans are transitioning, like there's something that's interesting, I think, about elite athletics and our veterans, especially in the special ops community. You go from being the best of the best on a Sunday, it's your last day in military service. And then on Monday, you're just average person again. And you have to figure out, how do I go? Which direction do I go? Who am I? What's my uniform? And to be able to recognize that everyone has to start over and you can start over time and time again with absolutely nothing but your heart, your integrity, your sense of self. That is the gift, and we can alchemize and make anything happen if we give ourselves the chance.
And that is powerful. And that's taking ownership. I love that you brought that up because people go through transitions and they're like, oh my goodness, this chapter of my life is over. And they think that their life was that whole chapter or that was their only story. You can write another chapter in your life. You just need to figure out the next steps. Go be with somebody that's a mentor. Go join an organization. Find your passion. Go for a walk. Think about things, but find your next mission. It's so important to do that, especially if you're somebody that's changing the world and working at elite levels. And then you just like regular person, you said it perfectly. That mentally is a shock because you go from being valued and having purpose and passion in your life, and then it's gone. Well, it's not fully gone. You just need to find another passion and purpose and your why, and you can have that same type of fulfillment. It's absolutely true. And I'm so glad you brought up the transitioning because that is so important. And that's not just for military either. You could be transitioning in a relationship to a new job, moving to another state, so many different things. When you are transitioning, it's okay. It's part of life. You're shedding your skin and you're going to, grow bigger and stronger. You just have to keep moving forward or rolling forward, like Sally says.
And
So
I am reaffirmed that the medals that we wear on our chest from military service, the medals that we wear around our neck from athletic service, they don't define us. They show us what it is that we're capable of. And if we can be excellent in that arena, we can be excellent in other arenas because we have that mindset. We just have to keep giving it a shot. The medals don't define us.
absolutely true. 100% true. That's just something there that shows a characteristic, shows a skill set, shows adaptability, and that you're willing to work. And all those things can achieve other things. They don't have to be a medal on your chest. They could be a diploma on the wall. They could be a business. They could be an organization that you started, a nonprofit. There's so many things out there, and you can find a purpose and you can find a way. Now, I want to be a little bit selfish here because I'm a father of 2 daughters. And what can I do to support my daughters in wrestling? How can I be the best wrestling or jujitsu dad?
When they ask to go to practice, say yes and be enthusiastic. And after practice, it's really important as a parent who's supporting their kiddo, doing something really brave and courageous and cool to keep it fun. I mean, even with the healing journey should be fun. This is our life. If they're doing jujitsu or other combat sport, it should be fun. So they want to keep doing it and they want to fall in love with the joy of the process. So, especially after hard practices, or if they decide that they want to compete and they don't win, to say, man, I'm so proud of you. Let's go get ice cream. Like, there is a difference between coaching boys and coaching girls. You can sit a group of boys down and say, "Do you know why we just lost that wrestling match?" And they'll point to each other and say, "His fault, his fault, his fault, his fault." And when we point and we ask that same question to a girls' wrestling team and say, "Do you know why we lost?" They'll say, "It was me. It was my fault." Women, girls, and women, we intrinsically take so much to heart because we want to bring our best self forward. And so many times, people didn't even have to criticize me or put me down. I was already doing that to myself. What I needed was people around me to help me shift my mindset into positive, into a joyful living where I could learn from my mistakes and roll forward. And you, as a dad, you're in a perfect position to continue to role model what it's like to watch other people love something, to see what their goals are, to help them set it, help them achieve it. And you get to speak life and breathe life and love into them. And that is so cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's the best job in the world. I used to think being a Green Beret was, but then I became a dad and I was like, yeah, being a Green Beret was cool, but not this cool. And like most things in life, it's hard.
Yeah.
The best things are hard, and get used to it. And then there's the other saying that's floating around everywhere now, choose your heart. If you're going to be out of shape, well, guess what? It's going to be hard later. It's hard to go to the gym or work on goals or do things, but it's going to pay off in the long run. Either way, life is hard, so choose wisely. I want to ask one more thing before we go. If you had a little girl that was across from you, getting ready to go in a big match and was dealing with fear or having an emotional moment, what would you say to her and share with her?
In that particular moment, I would ask her, what is her job? Instead of thinking from a fear based mindset, go back to the practicality of why are your 2 feet standing right here? And now that we understand that you have fear, let's start to redirect it. Your job isn't to be afraid. Your job is to know what you have to do. When it comes to wrestling, you need to have head control, you have hand control, you have to understand your positioning because what our brain thinks about for the last 30 seconds before we go out and wrestle, that's exactly what we're going to execute. And so it's important to get that framing shift from any fear based thoughts about what if, to here's what I'm going to do, here's what I'm going to do, here's what I'm going to do. And when we start packing the self belief into our kids, so that they understand that they are their own change makers. They get to determine what they think about, they get to determine what they're focusing on, and they have the adults around them that are helping to guide them to think about the appropriate things. There is a lot that can happen because the same fear that athletes face before they're getting ready to compete is the same fear that they'll face before taking an SAT test, before going to a job interview, perhaps even before going on a date. And if we can help our kids understand and harness and control that at a young age, imagine what they can be capable of when they're in their 30s and taking their C suite positions and working to be change makers of our world.
Well said. I love it. God bless you, all the work you're doing. You have a lot of wisdom to share. I'm proud of you for putting yourself out there, sharing your story. You're doing incredible work. You have the asset mindset, and that's why you're here. And remember, everybody, don't forget, follow, like, and subscribe. Check out what Sally's doing. Support Wrestle Like a Girl. And I can't thank you enough being a girl dad for what you're doing for girls out there and women in the world. And I love the fact that you said, do your job, and everybody out there, your job right now is to own your power.